I'm Oliver, 29, software engineer from Boston, who's always lived in my athletic brother's shadow. When I invited my parents to an important life event, they chose Tyler's football game instead. So my fiancée Emma and I made a decision we'd still have our wedding that day, just without telling them what they were missing. Never thought a simple invitation would shatter my entire family. If you're watching this from somewhere where family has let you down, hit that like button and subscribe. Let me tell you how I accidentally tore my family apart with just one invitation. Growing up as the older brother of a star athlete is like being the moon to their Sunday. You're there, you exist, but no one really notices you when the brighter light is shining. That's how it was with me and Tyler. From the moment he could throw a football at age 4, my parents decided he was destined for greatness. Don't get me wrong, I love my brother. It's not his fault our parents made him the center of our family universe. I was the quiet kid who got straight A's and built computers in my bedroom. I played chess, joined math competitions, and eventually got a full academic scholarship to MIT. Achievements that would make most parents burst with pride. But in the Anderson household, academic success was expected, not celebrated. Athletic prowess, however, was practically worshipped. The pattern started early. When I was 12, I made it to the state science fair finals. It was a big deal for me, and I'd worked on my project for months. The competition fell on the same day as Tyler's Little League championship. Guess where my parents went? I still remember my science teacher driving me home asking why my parents hadn't come. I made up some excuse about them being sick. Then there was my high school graduation. I was valedictorian, set to give a speech I'd worked on for weeks. Tyler had a freshman football scrimmage that morning. They arrived at my graduation just as I was walking off the stage, having completely missed my speech. "Did we miss anything important?" my mom asked. I just shook my head and said no. College graduation from MIT. They were 45 minutes late because Tyler's football training ran long. My first major promotion at work. The celebration dinner was rescheduled twice before being canceled entirely due to Tyler's game schedule. I tried to be understanding. I really did. Tyler was pursuing a dream with a limited timeline. He could only play football for so long while my career would span decades. That's what I told myself anyway. A rationalization that helped me swallow the bitter pill of being an afterthought in my own family. Then I met Emma 3 years ago. It was such a cliché meet cute that if it were in a movie, people would roll their eyes. We were both taking shelter from a sudden downpour in the same coffee shop in downtown Boston. There were no empty tables, so she asked if she could share mine. 2 hours later, we were still talking long after the rain had stopped. Emma is a pediatric nurse, with boundless empathy and a gift for seeing people for who they truly are. From our very first date, she noticed things about me that even I had forgotten. She saw my passion for coding as creative rather than nerdy. She laughed genuinely at my dry humor. She asked about my projects and actually listened to the answers. Most importantly, she recognized the hurt I carried from years of being overlooked. "Your accomplishments don't matter less just because your family doesn't celebrate them properly," she told me one night about 6 months into our relationship. We were having dinner at my apartment, and I'd just mentioned offhandedly that my parents had canceled our plans again for one of Tyler's games. "You deserve to be seen, Oliver." Emma came from a family that couldn't be more different from mine. Her parents, Michael and Susan, showed up for everything. They drove 2 hours to attend Emma's small workplace award ceremony. They remembered my birthday and sent thoughtful gifts. They asked about my work and actually understood what I did because they took the time to learn about it. After a year and a half of dating, I asked Emma to marry me. I planned an elaborate proposal at the Boston Public Garden with a string quartet playing our song and a photographer hidden nearby to capture the moment. She said yes immediately, tears streaming down her face, and I felt like the luckiest man alive. When I called my parents to tell them the news, my mom's first question was whether we had checked the date against Tyler's football schedule. Not congratulations, not excitement, just concern that our wedding might conflict with a game. I laughed it off on the phone, but after I hung up, I sat in stunned silence for 20 minutes. Emma and I began planning our wedding, a process that should have been joyful but instead became another exercise in family disappointment. My parents missed our engagement dinner because Tyler had a scrimmage that he really needed them at for moral support. They skipped our menu tasting because there was a potential scout coming to watch Tyler play. They even asked if we could move our engagement photo session because it conflicted with one of Tyler's interviews. Each time I swallowed my hurt and rearranged my life to accommodate my brother's schedule. Each time Emma watched me make myself smaller to fit into the space my family allocated for me. And each time her gentle suggestion that we needed to address this pattern grew a little firmer. "They're not going to change unless you make them see what they're doing," she said, one night after my parents had canceled yet another wedding planning event. "You matter, Oliver. Our marriage matters. If they can't see that, maybe it's time to show them." Little did I know then how prophetic her words would become. Emma and I originally planned a traditional wedding ceremony at a beautiful venue in the Berkshires. We envisioned 100 guests, a sit-down dinner, dancing under the stars, and all the conventional trappings. We reserved a date 9 months out, sent save the dates, and began the usual planning process. I had hoped, perhaps naively, that my wedding would finally be the event important enough for my parents to prioritize. About 6 months before the wedding, my Uncle Jack, my dad's brother, came to visit me in Boston. Unlike my father, Uncle Jack had always made an effort to be present for my milestones. He attended my college graduation when my parents were late. He helped me move into my first apartment. He remembered my birthdays with thoughtful gifts related to my interests. Over dinner at my favorite Italian restaurant, Uncle Jack shared some family history I'd never known. "Your dad was a lot like you when we were kids," he told me, twirling pasta around his fork. "Smart, quiet, good at school. But our father only had eyes for sports." Really, I found this hard to believe. My father, Robert Anderson, successful business executive and football fanatic, had once been the overlooked academic child. Oh yeah, Dad was a former college linebacker, and he pushed Robert hard in sports, but your father just wasn't built for it. I was the athletic one. Uncle Jack took a sip of his wine. When Robert couldn't fulfill Dad's athletic dreams, he stepped back and focused on business instead, made himself successful in a different arena. "So why would he do the same thing to me?" I asked. "If he knows how it feels." Uncle Jack shrugged. "Sometimes we repeat the patterns we know even when we hated them ourselves. Or maybe he's living vicariously through Tyler in a way he never could with his own father. Either way, it doesn't make it right." That conversation stuck with me. But what really crystallized my thinking was what happened the following week. Emma and I had scheduled our engagement dinner at an upscale restaurant in the city. We'd made reservations months in advance, invited close family and friends, and were excited to bring our two families together before the wedding. 3 days before the dinner, my mother called. "Oliver, honey, we need to talk about Saturday." She began, her voice carrying that apologetic tone I knew all too well. "The engagement dinner. Everything's set. We start at 7, I replied, already feeling a knot forming in my stomach. "That's the thing. Tyler has a scrimmage that afternoon and there's a really important scout coming to watch him. We really need to be there for him." "Mom, this dinner has been planned for months. We can't change it now. People have made arrangements." "I know, sweetie, but this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for your brother. Can't you reschedule? Just push it back a week or 2. I felt something inside me snap. Not in a dramatic, explosive way, but in the quiet, final way of an elastic band that's been stretched too far for too long. "No, Mom, I can't reschedule. Emma's family is coming from out of town. Reservations are made, deposits are paid. This is important to us." There was a pause. "Well, we'll try to make it, but we might be late. Or we might not make it at all if the scrimmage runs long. You understand, right?" I understood perfectly. And that night, as Emma held me while I processed yet another disappointment, a plan began to form. "What if we changed our approach entirely?" I suggested, staring at the ceiling of our bedroom. "What if we had a small, intimate wedding instead? Just the people who truly want to be there." Emma propped herself up on one elbow. "Are you talking about not inviting your parents?" "Not exactly. I'm talking about not telling them it's a wedding." The plan evolved from there. We would cancel our large wedding and forfeit the deposits. Instead, we would have a small ceremony with just 20 of our closest friends and family members. We would send my parents an invitation to an important life event, deliberately vague, but on the same date we had originally planned for our wedding. Part of me hoped they would surprise me and choose my event over Tyler's game. The other part of me, the part that had been disappointed too many times, knew they wouldn't, and in that case they would learn afterward what they had missed. Emma had concerns. "Are you sure this is the way to address the issue? It feels a bit like a trap." "It's not a trap," I insisted. "It's a test. And also a protection mechanism for me. If I tell them it's our wedding, and they still choose not to come, that's a hurt I don't think I could recover from. This way, if they don't come, at least they didn't explicitly choose to miss my wedding." She wasn't entirely convinced, but she supported my decision. "I just want you to be happy on our wedding day," she said, "not resentful or sad." "I'll be marrying you," I replied. "How could I be anything but happy?" We set our plan in motion. We found a charming small venue, a historic house with gardens in Cambridge. We ordered new, simpler invitations for our reduced guest list, making it clear they were coming to our wedding, and we crafted a separate, carefully worded invitation for my immediate family. "You are cordially invited to an important milestone in Oliver's life," it read. "Saturday, June 12th at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Your presence would mean the world to him." I mailed it with a mixture of hope and trepidation. 3 days later, my mother called. "Oliver, about this event on the 12th. She began. "Yes," I held my breath. "We're so sorry, but that's Tyler's big game against State. The one they've been building toward all season. We really can't miss it." Even though I'd expected this response, the pain was still sharp. "I see. Can you tell us what this event is? Maybe we could stop by before or after the game." "It's personal," I said. "And no, it's at a fixed time. But don't worry about it. Enjoy the game. Are you sure you sound upset?" "I'm fine, Mom. I've had plenty of practice adjusting my expectations." After I hung up, Emma found me sitting silently on our couch. She didn't say anything, just held my hand. "Well, that's that," I finally said. "Wedding planning continues without the Anderson family." There was one family member who did find out the truth, though. My grandmother, Rose, my father's mother, had always had a special relationship with me. She called a week before the wedding, concerned about the vague invitation. "Oliver, what's this mysterious event? You know I'll be there regardless, but my curiosity is killing me." I found I couldn't lie to Grandma Rose. "It's my wedding to Emma, Grandma. But please don't tell Mom and Dad." There was a pause. "They don't know." I explained the situation, expecting her to scold me for the deception. Instead, she sighed deeply. "History repeats itself," she said cryptically. "I'll be there, Oliver. And I won't say a word to your parents. Some lessons must be learned the hard way." As the wedding day approached, I felt a complex mix of emotions: excitement about marrying Emma, sorrow about my family's absence, anxiety about the eventual fallout, and a quiet determination to finally stand up for my own importance in the world. The morning of June 12th dawned clear and perfect, as if even the weather was conspiring to make our small wedding beautiful. I woke up in a hotel room, following tradition by spending the night before the wedding apart from Emma. My best friend Marcus was already up making coffee in the room's small kitchenette. "Big day, man," he said, handing me a steaming mug. "How are you feeling?" I took a moment to assess. Good. Nervous, but good nervous. Any regrets about the family situation? Marcus was one of the few people who knew the full story. I stared into my coffee. I keep thinking maybe I should call them, tell them the truth. Give them one last chance to choose me. Marcus sat on the edge of the bed. "Look, Oliver, I've known you since college. I've seen how your family treats you. This isn't about punishing them. It's about finally doing something for yourself, without diminishing it to accommodate them." He was right, but doubt still gnawed at me. What if this destroys my relationship with them permanently? If missing your wedding destroys your relationship, that's on them, not you. Real family shows up. Emma's family shows up. Your friends show up. We're all here. His words steadied me, and I focused on getting ready. The morning passed in a blur of showers, breakfast dressing in our suits, and last-minute preparations. By noon, we were at the venue, a gorgeous colonial-era house with gardens in full bloom. The setup was simple but elegant. Chairs arranged in rows facing a flower-covered arch in the garden. Inside tables were set for an intimate reception dinner. Emma's touches were everywhere. Wildflowers in mason jars, twinkling lights strung through the trees for later framed photos of us throughout our relationship. At 1:30 guests began to arrive. Emma's parents, Michael and Susan, came first, both hugging me tightly. "We are so proud to welcome you to our family," Susan whispered in my ear. Uncle Jack arrived next, then friends from work and college. Grandma Rose came in a beautiful blue dress, her silver hair elegantly styled. She took my hands in hers and looked me directly in the eyes. "You look so much like your grandfather," she said. "He would have been here today no matter what else was happening in the world." The ceremony was scheduled for 2 o'clock. At 1:50 I stood in a small room at the back of the house adjusting my tie for the 10th time when there was a knock on the door. It was Uncle Jack. "I think that's my job," he said, gesturing to my tie. As he straightened it, he added, "I know I'm not your father, Oliver, but I would be honored to stand in for him today. Walk with you to the altar if you'd like." Emotion clogged my throat. "I'd like that very much," I managed to say. At precisely 2 o'clock, while my parents sat in stadium seats at my brother's football game, I walked down the aisle with my uncle beside me. I took my place under the arch and turned to watch the entrance. And then Emma appeared, and everything else faded away. She was breathtaking in a simple white dress, her hair adorned with tiny flowers, her smile radiant. Her father walked her down the aisle, pride evident in every step. As he placed her hand in mine, I felt a profound sense of rightness. This woman saw me, valued me, chose me above all others. Whatever happened with my family afterward, I knew I was making the right decision today. The ceremony was brief but deeply meaningful. We exchanged vows we had written ourselves. I promised to always see Emma for the extraordinary person she was, to support her dreams, as she supported mine, to build a family based on mutual respect and presence. She promised to stand by me through all of life's challenges, to help me recognize my own worth, and to create a home where we both felt valued and loved. After we exchanged rings and were pronounced husband and wife, we turned to face our small gathering of guests. The applause was enthusiastic, the smiles genuine. These were people who had chosen to be present for an important moment in our lives, and their joy for us was palpable. The reception that followed was everything we had hoped for: delicious food, heartfelt toasts, and an atmosphere of authentic celebration. Grandma Rose gave a particularly touching speech. "I've watched Oliver grow from a thoughtful boy into a remarkable man," she said, her voice strong. "Despite her 80 years, he has always had a quiet strength, a dignity that doesn't demand attention, but deserves it nonetheless. Emma, thank you for seeing what some have been too blind to notice. You two have built a foundation of mutual respect and genuine presence in each other's lives. That's what marriage should be." Throughout the evening, friends took photos and posted them on social media, tagging Emma and me with congratulatory captions. Witnessing Oliver and Emma become husband and wife today, just married Anderson Wilson wedding. These digital breadcrumbs would soon lead to the storm that was coming. But for those golden hours, we were blissfully focused on our celebration. Uncle Jack stepped up admirably to fulfill traditional father of the groom duties. He gave a toast, danced with Emma for the father-daughter dance, while her dad danced with me for the mother-son dance, and generally ensured I didn't feel the absence of my parents too keenly. As the evening progressed and the twinkling lights in the trees created a magical atmosphere, Emma and I shared a quiet moment alone in the garden. "Any regrets?" she asked, echoing Marcus's question from that morning. I looked around at the joyful celebration, at the people who had made the effort to be there for us, and then back at my new wife's beautiful face. "Not a single one," I answered truthfully. "This is perfect." And it was. Despite the absence of my immediate family, or perhaps because of the absence of their habitual neglect, our wedding day was filled with genuine joy, unmarred by disappointment or accommodation. For once in my life, I had prioritized my own significant moment, and it felt like a first step toward a healthier future. As we danced under the stars with our chosen family surrounding us, I felt a peace I hadn't expected. Whatever storm was coming when my parents discovered what they had missed, at least, we would weather it as husband and wife, secure in the knowledge that we had begun our marriage surrounded by love and authentic support. The morning after our wedding, Emma and I woke up in our hotel suite to the sound of my phone buzzing incessantly. Still groggy and wrapped in the happy bubble of newlyweds, I initially ignored it. But when Emma's phone started going off too, we knew something was happening. I reached for my phone and found it flooded with notifications. Text messages, voicemails, social media alerts, all pouring in at a staggering rate. As I scrolled through, the reality of what was happening dawned on me. Our wedding photos had spread online, and my family had discovered what they'd missed. The first message I opened was from my mother, time-stamped at 7:15 that morning. "Oliver, there are pictures of you and Emma in wedding clothes all over Facebook. Please call me immediately and explain what's going on." 10 minutes later, another text. "Oliver Anderson, you answer your phone right now. What have you done?" By 8 o'clock, the tone had shifted dramatically. "How could you do this to us? Your own wedding. Without telling us. Call me now." My father had left several voicemails, each progressively more angry. The first was brief and confused. "Oliver, it's Dad. Call me back as soon as you get this. There's some confusion about some photos online." The second, left 30 minutes later, was less measured. "What kind of son doesn't invite his parents to his wedding? Call me back immediately." By the third voicemail, his anger was palpable. "You've broken your mother's heart with this stunt. I raised you better than this. This is unacceptable behavior, and there will be serious consequences for this level of disrespect." Tyler's messages were perhaps the most unexpected in their intensity. "Dude, what the actual hell? You got married during my big game. The scouts were there. This was my moment, and now everyone's blowing up my phone about your wedding. Mom's hysterical. Dad's on the warpath, and I'm standing here looking like an idiot because I didn't even know my own brother was getting married. Way to make everything about you for once." Emma read the messages over my shoulder, her face growing increasingly concerned. "I knew there would be fallout, but this is intense," she said quietly. "Are you okay?" I wasn't sure how to answer. Part of me had expected anger, but the sheer volume and intensity of the responses was overwhelming. "I think I need to understand exactly what's happening out there before I respond to anyone," I said. We spent the next hour piecing together the digital trail. Our friends had posted dozens of photos from the wedding, all with tags that made them easily findable. "Congratulations to the newlyweds, Anderson Wilson wedding. And what a beautiful day for Oliver and Emma, just married. And so honored to witness Oliver and Emma's special day." These posts had been seen by mutual friends, extended family members, and my parents' social circle. By morning, the news had spread widely, with many expressing surprise that the Anderson family wasn't in any of the photos. My mother's cousin had apparently called her first thing in the morning to congratulate her on her son's beautiful wedding, only to discover that my mother had no idea what she was talking about. From there, the situation had snowballed, as my parents frantically searched social media and found indisputable evidence that their son had gotten married without telling them. As we were still trying to process this information, my phone rang again. It was my mother. After a deep breath and a reassuring nod from Emma, I answered. "Hello, Oliver." My mother's voice was tight with emotion. "Please tell me these pictures are from some kind of pre-wedding photo shoot or costume party. Please tell me you didn't actually get married yesterday without telling us." "I can't tell you that, Mom. Emma and I got married yesterday at 2 o'clock, the same time as Tyler's game." There was a sharp intake of breath. "How could you do this to us? Your own parents. We would have been there if we'd known. I invited you to an important life event on that exact date and time. You chose Tyler's game instead. That's not fair. You didn't tell us it was your wedding." "Because I already knew what your choice would be. It's always been Tyler. My entire life it's been Tyler." "That is simply not true." My mother's voice rose. "We've always supported both of you equally. Mom, you missed my college graduation because Tyler had a football game. You skipped my promotion dinner, my award ceremony, and every other significant event in my adult life because something of Tyler's always took precedence. Those were different circumstances. If we had known this was your wedding. That's exactly it, I interrupted. It shouldn't matter what the event was. It was important to me. That should have been enough for you to be there. There was a long pause. When my mother spoke again, her voice was choked with tears. Your father wants to speak with you. Before I could protest, my father's voice came on the line, cold and controlled in a way that was more frightening than yelling would have been. What you've done is unforgivable, he said without preamble. You've humiliated this family. Do you have any idea how this looks? Everyone is talking about how the Andersons weren't at their own son's wedding. People are asking me why we weren't there, and what am I supposed to say? The truth would be a start, I replied, surprising myself with my calm. That you chose Tyler's football game over an event your oldest son specifically said was important to him. Don't you dare turn this around on us. You deliberately deceived us. You robbed us of the chance to see our son get married. No, Dad. You robbed yourselves of that chance when you decided yet again that Tyler's game was more important than anything happening in my life. This is outrageous. Your mother is absolutely devastated. She's been crying all morning. Is that what you wanted, to hurt your mother? Of course not. I just wanted for once in my life to have a significant moment that wasn't overshadowed by Tyler. A day where I didn't have to accommodate his schedule or accept being second place in my own family. My father's voice dropped to a dangerous quiet. If you don't apologize to your mother right now and try to make this right, there will be serious consequences, Oliver. What consequences? Dad, will you pay less attention to me, invest less time in my life, show up for fewer of my important moments? How would that be different from the last 29 years? There was a shocked silence on the other end of the line. Then my father said, I don't even recognize who you've become. This conversation is over until you're ready to show some respect to the people who raised you. The call ended abruptly. I sat there, phone in hand, feeling strangely hollow. Emma, who had heard everything, wrapped her arms around me. That was incredibly brave, she said softly. I don't feel brave. I feel sick. That's because you care about them despite everything. It's okay to feel conflicted. My phone buzzed with more notifications. The story was spreading beyond just family and friends now. My parents' friends were commenting, expressing shock and concern. Extended family members were taking sides in comment threads. My Aunt Patricia, my mother's sister, had posted a long message of support for me, revealing that she too had often felt overlooked in favor of my mother when they were growing up. This was no longer just about a missed wedding. It was unearthing generations of family dynamics and long-buried resentments. And somewhere in the chaos of buzzing phones and emotional fallout, our first day as husband and wife was slipping away. Emma gently took my phone from my hands. Let's turn these off for today, she suggested. We're still on our honeymoon, technically. The family drama will still be there tomorrow. She was right, of course. But as I tried to focus on enjoying our day together, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had just irrevocably altered my family's landscape, and I wasn't sure if anything would ever be the same again. The week following our wedding was like watching a family implosion in slow motion. Emma and I had planned a short honeymoon getaway to a coastal town in Maine, but the constant barrage of family drama made it difficult to truly disconnect and enjoy our time as newlyweds. By Tuesday, just 3 days after our wedding, the situation had escalated beyond anything I could have anticipated. My Uncle Jack called while Emma and I were having breakfast at our oceanfront bed and breakfast. Oliver, I wanted to check in on you, he said, his voice tight with concern. Things have gotten pretty intense back home. What's happening? I asked, stepping outside to take the call while Emma finished her coffee. Your father and mother had a huge fight last night. He's blaming her for raising you wrong and creating this mess. Said if she'd been a better mother, you wouldn't have pulled this stunt. I felt sick. That's ridiculous. This isn't Mom's fault. I know that, and deep down Robert knows it too. But he's lashing out. He actually threatened divorce, Oliver. Packed a bag and everything, though Aunt Rose talked him into staying at the house for now. Divorce. Over this, the weight of unintended consequences settled heavily on my shoulders. I never wanted to break up their marriage. This isn't about you, not really, Uncle Jack sighed. It's about 30 years of your father's unprocessed issues with his own father and how he's repeated those patterns with you and Tyler. Your wedding just brought it all to the surface. After speaking with Uncle Jack, I called my mother. She answered on the first ring, as if she'd been waiting by the phone. Oliver. Her voice sounded raw, like she'd been crying for days. Hi, Mom. Uncle Jack called me. He said Dad's talking about divorce. She let out a shuddering breath. Your father is very upset. He feels we've failed as parents, that I've failed specifically. He says a good son wouldn't have excluded his parents from his wedding, so we must have done something terribly wrong. Mom, that's not. I've been having anxiety attacks, she continued, her voice shaking. I can't eat, can't sleep. All I can think about is missing your wedding. My own son's wedding. The photos are everywhere, Oliver. My friends keep calling, asking why we weren't there. Do you know how humiliating this is? Guilt and frustration warred within me. I'm sorry you're hurting, Mom, but I've been hurting for years. Every time you and Dad chose Tyler's events over mine. Every important moment you missed. The wedding was just the culmination of a lifetime of feeling secondary in my own family. We never meant to make you feel that way, she whispered. But you did. And when I explicitly told you I had an important event, you still chose Tyler's game without hesitation. Because we didn't know it was your wedding, she cried. It shouldn't have mattered what it was, I replied, the same point I'd been trying to make all along. It was important to me. That should have been enough. The conversation went in circles after that, neither of us truly hearing the other. Before we hung up, my mother made one last plea. Please talk to your brother. He's taking this very hard. Tyler. I hadn't spoken directly to him since the wedding, though his angry texts had continued. With a sense of dread, I called him next. Finally decided to pick up the phone, he answered, his voice cold. Tyler, Save it. Do you have any idea what you've done? The scouts were distracted during the game because people in the stands were showing them wedding pictures of you on their phones. My big chance. And you managed to screw it up without even being there. That's hardly my fault, I protested. I didn't ask anyone to show pictures during your game. No, you just deliberately scheduled your secret wedding on the same day as the most important game of my career. I'm your brother Oliver. Your brother, and you didn't even tell me you were getting married. Would you have come if it meant missing your game? I asked quietly. There was a telling pause. That's not the point, he finally said. That's exactly the point. No one in this family would have chosen my wedding over your game. That's why I didn't tell you what the event was. So you set us all up to look bad. Congratulations, it worked. Dad's threatening to leave Mom. Mom's having panic attacks, and I'm getting sideways looks from my teammates like I'm some kind of terrible brother who skipped his own brother's wedding for a football game. You've turned our whole family upside down just to prove a point. The conversation deteriorated from there, with Tyler accusing me of jealousy and sabotage, and me trying unsuccessfully to make him understand my perspective. We ended the call with nothing resolved, just more hurt feelings on both sides. Meanwhile, the extended family was taking sides. Grandma Rose had become one of my strongest advocates, calling family members to explain my perspective and standing firm in her support of my decision. Uncle Jack was playing mediator, trying to help my father see his role in the situation, while also gently suggesting I could have handled things differently. My mother's sister, Aunt Patricia, had surprised everyone by publicly supporting me. In a family group chat that had turned into a heated debate forum, she wrote, Diane, you and Robert did the same thing to Oliver that Mom and Dad did to me, always favoring one child over the other. The chosen child never sees it, and the parents deny it. But the overlooked child feels it every single day. Oliver just had the courage to finally call it out. This revelation led to its own separate family drama, as my mother and Aunt Patricia excavated childhood grievances that had apparently been simmering for decades. By the end of the week, the situation had become so volatile that Uncle Jack suggested a family meeting with everyone present. We need to clear the air before this gets any worse, he said. Your parents' marriage is hanging by a thread. Tyler's blaming you for potential scouts losing interest, and the extended family is choosing sides. This isn't what you wanted, Oliver. He was right. As justified as I felt in my actions, the fallout had extended far beyond what I'd intended. This wasn't about teaching my family a lesson anymore. It was about whether we could salvage any kind of relationship moving forward. Emma and I cut our honeymoon short by 2 days and returned to Boston to face the music. The family meeting was scheduled for Sunday afternoon at Grandma Rose's house, neutral territory. As the time approached, Emma squeezed my hand. "Remember why you did this," she said softly. "Not to hurt them, but to finally stand up for yourself. Don't let them twist this into you being the villain." The meeting was a disaster from the start. My father refused to look at me. My mother burst into tears the moment I walked in. Tyler sat with his arms crossed, radiating hostility. Grandma Rose tried to moderate, but the conversation quickly devolved into accusations and counter-accusations. "You deliberately humiliated us," my father stated flatly. "You've been overlooking me my entire life," I countered. "That's ridiculous. We've supported you every step of the way," my mother cried. "By missing every important event in my life, because Tyler's games always took precedence." "Here we go again," Tyler rolled his eyes. "Poor Oliver, always playing the victim." "You have no idea what it's like," I shot back. "You've always been the golden child. Everything has always revolved around you and your football schedule." "That's not my fault." Tyler stood up, his face flushed. "I didn't ask to be born with athletic talent. I didn't ask for Mom and Dad to come to my games." "No, but you never once said, 'Hey, maybe skip this game and go to Oliver's graduation instead.' You took it all for granted." The argument continued in circles, with old hurts and resentments bubbling to the surface. At one point, my father turned to my mother and said, "This is what comes of your coddling. You've raised a son who thinks the world revolves around him." That led to another argument between my parents, with decades-old parenting disagreements being rehashed in front of everyone. The meeting ended when my mother broke down, completely sobbing uncontrollably, and my father stormed out, saying he needed time to think about whether he even wanted to remain part of this family. As Emma and I drove home in stunned silence, I realized that Uncle Jack had been right about one thing: this wasn't just about a missed wedding anymore. It was about generations of family patterns, unspoken expectations, and the complex dynamics that had shaped all of our lives. The question now was whether our family could survive the painful truths that had been exposed, and whether, even if they finally understood my perspective, the damage done was simply too great to repair. 2 weeks after the failed family meeting, with tensions still running high and communications largely reduced to terse text messages, Aunt Patricia suggested something unexpected: family therapy. To my surprise, everyone agreed, perhaps recognizing that we couldn't resolve this on our own. Dr. Evelyn Hayes was a family therapist with 30 years of experience navigating complex family dynamics. She set up a session at her office, a neutral space with comfortable chairs arranged in a circle. As we filed in, my parents, Tyler, Emma, and me, with Grandma Rose joining as well, the tension was palpable. Dr. Hayes established ground rules. First, one person speaks at a time. Use I statements rather than accusations. Focus on feelings rather than assigning blame, and commit to listening without interrupting. Simple rules that seemed nearly impossible given the emotions swirling in the room. "I'd like to start by hearing from each of you about how you experienced the wedding situation," she said calmly. "Not your judgments about others' actions, but your own experience and feelings. Oliver, since this began with your decision, would you start?" I took a deep breath, feeling everyone's eyes on me. I felt invisible in my family for most of my life. I began, my voice steadier than I expected. Every significant moment was overshadowed by Tyler's sports schedule. When I invited my family to an important life event, and they immediately chose Tyler's game, instead it confirmed what I'd always felt, that I would never be the priority, not even for my own wedding. "So you deliberately deceived us," my father interjected. Dr. Hayes held up a hand. "Robert, please remember the ground rules. Oliver is sharing his experience. You'll have your turn to share yours." I continued. "I didn't tell them it was my wedding because I couldn't bear the explicit rejection. If they had known it was my wedding and still chosen not to come, that would have been too painful to recover from. This way, they didn't knowingly choose to miss my wedding, but I still got to have my day without accommodation or disappointment. When I finished, Dr. Hayes turned to my mother. "Diane, how did you experience this situation?" My mother dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. "I felt blindsided and betrayed. Finding out my son got married without telling me was like a physical blow. I've replayed every conversation wondering how I missed the signs, what I could have done differently." Her voice cracked. "I keep seeing the photos online, everyone smiling and celebrating, and I wasn't there. I'll never get that moment back." My father spoke next, his voice tight with controlled emotion. "I felt disrespected and manipulated. A son who respects his parents would want them at his wedding. Oliver deliberately set us up to fail, to look bad in front of everyone we know. He could have told us, given us the chance to be there, but he chose not to. That's not the son I raised." Tyler's turn came. "I felt used," he said bluntly. "Like my football career was just a prop in Oliver's lifelong victim narrative. The scouts were there. It was a crucial game for my future, and suddenly everyone's phones are blowing up with wedding pictures. My own brother got married and didn't tell me. Made me look like the bad guy for not being there when I didn't even know." Grandma Rose spoke last among the family members. "I felt sad watching history repeat itself," she said, looking pointedly at my father. "Robert, your father did the same to you that you've done to Oliver. Prioritized sports and achievements over emotional connection. You swore you'd never do that to your children, yet here we are." My father's face flushed. "That's not the same thing at all." "Isn't it?" Grandma Rose challenged. "How many of Oliver's events have you missed over the years because of Tyler's games? How many times has he had to accommodate, adjust, or accept being second place?" Dr. Hayes interjected. "Let's focus on understanding each perspective before we debate them. Emma, would you like to share your experience?" Emma spoke thoughtfully. "I've watched Oliver shrink himself to fit into the space his family allocates for him. I've seen him swallow disappointment time after time. Our wedding day was the first time I saw him prioritize his own significant life event without apology or accommodation. I supported his decision because I believed he deserved that one day to be about him without being overshadowed." For the next hour, Dr. Hayes guided us through a deeper examination of family patterns. She asked my father about his relationship with his father, which led to revelations I'd never heard before. "My father was a college football star," my father explained reluctantly. "Nothing I did ever measured up. I was good at school, but he didn't care about academics. He missed my high school graduation because there was an alumni game at his old college." "And how did that make you feel?" Dr. Hayes asked. My father stared at the floor. "Invisible. Like nothing I accomplished mattered." "Yet you've done the same to Oliver," Dr. Hayes observed gently. "That's different. Tyler has real talent. He could go pro. It's a limited window of opportunity. And Oliver's achievements weren't worthy of the same support." My father didn't have an answer for that. My mother's turn came to examine her own history. "I was always in my sister's shadow growing up," she admitted, glancing at Aunt Patricia, who had chosen not to attend. Patricia was the pretty one, the popular one. My parents focused on her social life, her boyfriends, her prom dresses. I was just there. "So you understand what it feels like to be overlooked," Dr. Hayes noted. "Yes, but we didn't do that to Oliver," my mother insisted. "We supported him too, just differently." "Did you?" Dr. Hayes asked. "Oliver, did you bring anything to help illustrate your experience?" This was something Dr. Hayes had suggested during our preliminary phone call. I reached into my bag and pulled out a photo album I'd compiled specifically for this session. "This is a record of important events in my life," I explained, passing it to Dr. Hayes. "The sticky notes mark the ones my parents missed because of Tyler's activities." Dr. Hayes opened the album and began paging through it slowly. My high school graduation, college graduation, academic award ceremonies, my first major art exhibition, a hobby I'd pursued in college, the celebration dinner for my first big promotion. Page after page of significant milestones, nearly all marked with yellow sticky notes. She passed the album to my parents. My mother's hand trembled as she turned the pages. My father's face grew increasingly pale. "I didn't realize there were so many," my mother whispered. There's also a section for the wedding planning events you missed, I said quietly. The engagement dinner, the menu tasting, the venue selection, all rescheduled or attended without you because of Tyler's games or practices. Tyler, who had been looking over my mother's shoulder at the album, sat back with a stunned expression. I didn't know, he said. I knew they came to my games, but I didn't realize what they were missing to be there. It wasn't your responsibility to know, I told him, surprising myself with the lack of anger in my voice. You were just living your life. It was Mom and Dad's responsibility to balance their time between both their children. Dr. Hayes directed the conversation toward Tyler's experience. Tyler, what has it been like for you being what some might call the favored child? Tyler shifted uncomfortably. Everyone thinks it's great being the golden boy, but it comes with crazy pressure. Every game, every practice, I feel like I'm performing for more than just myself. Like I'm carrying Dad's unfulfilled dreams, Mom's expectations. If I fail, I'm not just letting myself down. That's not true, my father protested. We'd love you regardless of how you perform. Would you, Tyler challenged? Because from where I sit, the family identity is wrapped up in my athletic success. What happens when that's gone? What am I worth to this family then? It was a perspective I'd never considered, the burden of being the favored child. The pressure Tyler felt to maintain his position, to justify the family's investment in his success. For the first time, I felt a glimmer of empathy for my brother's position. As the session continued, more truths emerged. My father admitted to living vicariously through Tyler's athletic success, trying to achieve through his son what he never could himself. My mother acknowledged that she had overcompensated for Tyler's activities because she didn't know how to connect with my more intellectual pursuits. Tyler confessed to sometimes feeling guilty about the attention he received, but not knowing how to address it without seeming ungrateful. The breakthrough moment came when Dr. Hayes asked a simple question. What does each of you want from this family moving forward? I want acknowledgement, I said immediately. Recognition that the pattern was real and harmful, and a commitment to more balance in the future. I want my family back, my mother said through tears. I want to repair what's broken. My father was silent for a long moment. I want to understand how I became the father I swore I'd never be. He finally said, his voice rough with emotion. And I want a chance to do better. Tyler's answer surprised me the most. I want to be seen as more than just an athlete, he said. And I want a real relationship with my brother, not this competition neither of us asked for. As the session drew to a close, Dr. Hayes offered some observations. What I'm hearing is a family caught in generational patterns that have gone unexamined for too long. The wedding situation was a symptom, not the cause of the dysfunction. The good news is that everyone here seems committed to healing, even if the path forward isn't entirely clear yet. She recommended ongoing therapy both as a family and individually. This won't be resolved in one session, she cautioned. You're looking at months of work to establish new patterns and heal old wounds. But the fact that you're all here is a promising start. As we filed out of her office, no one spoke immediately. The rawness of the session had left us all emotionally drained. But there was also a sense that something had shifted, that truths long buried had finally been exposed to light, creating the possibility, however fragile, of genuine change. 3 months after our first therapy session, Emma and I sat in our apartment preparing for a family dinner. It wasn't just any dinner. It was a belated wedding celebration my parents had insisted on hosting, their way of acknowledging what they had missed and attempting to make amends. Are you nervous? Emma asked, adjusting my tie in a gesture that had become familiar since our wedding day. A little, I admitted. We've made progress, but it still feels fragile. The past 3 months had been a journey of painful honesty, tentative reconciliation, and the slow, challenging work of changing family dynamics that had been entrenched for decades. The road to healing hadn't been straight or smooth, but we had all committed to traveling it, however difficult. Individual conversations had been crucial to the process. About a month after our group therapy session, my father had asked me to meet him for lunch, just the two of us. We sat across from each other at a quiet restaurant, the awkwardness between us palpable. I've been doing a lot of thinking, he began, fidgeting with his napkin in a way that revealed his discomfort, and a lot of talking with my own therapist. I waited, giving him space to continue. "The photo album you brought to the session," he said. "I keep thinking about it. All those moments I missed." He looked up, meeting my eyes directly. "Dr. Hayes asked me to try to imagine how I would feel if my father had done the same to me. And the truth is, he did. And it hurt like hell. My father rarely showed vulnerability, and hearing the pain in his voice caught me off guard. I told myself I was being a good father by supporting Tyler," he continued, "that I was doing what my father never did for me. But in the process, I became exactly like him toward you." He took a deep breath. "I'm sorry, Oliver. I was wrong. There's no excuse for missing so many important moments in your life." The apology wasn't perfect. It was awkward and halting, but it was sincere, perhaps. The first truly sincere apology my father had ever offered me. It wasn't just the words. It was the effort he was making to understand, to see the pattern he had perpetuated. My conversation with my mother had been even more emotional. She had invited me over while my father was at work, prepared my favorite childhood cookies, and then broken down completely before we even sat down. "I should have seen it," she sobbed. "I should have protected you from feeling like you didn't matter." As we talked, she revealed more about her own childhood of feeling overlooked. "I promised myself my children would never feel the way I did," she said. "But instead of breaking the pattern, I just flipped it. I focused so much on making sure Tyler wasn't overlooked like I was. I didn't see that I was doing the exact same thing to you." The conversation with Tyler had perhaps been the most surprising. We met at a basketball court, a neutral space for both of us, and shot hoops while we talked an activity we hadn't shared since we were kids. "I never wanted to be the favorite," he told me, dribbling the ball pensively. "And honestly, it's kind of messed up my head. Like, am I only valuable because I can throw a football? What happens when that's gone?" "You're more than just an athlete, Tyler," I said, meaning it. "Am I? Because sometimes I don't even know who I am outside of football." He passed me the ball. "And for what it's worth, I'm sorry I didn't see what was happening. I should have stepped back sometimes. Told Mom and Dad to go to your stuff instead." "It wasn't your responsibility," I repeated what I'd said in therapy. "You were just a kid too. Still, you're my brother. I should have had your back." That conversation had marked the beginning of a new relationship between Tyler and me, one based on mutual respect rather than competition or resentment. We'd started texting regularly, making time to connect in ways we never had before. Emma had been my rock throughout the process, supporting me while also encouraging me to maintain healthy boundaries. "Healing doesn't mean forgetting," she reminded me often. "It means moving forward with awareness and protection for yourself." Grandma Rose had played her own important role, sharing family history that provided context for the patterns we were trying to break. "Your grandfather was a hard man," she told me during a visit to her home. "He saw vulnerability as weakness and affection as indulgence. Robert learned early that the only way to get his father's attention was through achievement. It's no excuse for how he treated you, but understanding the pattern is the first step to breaking it." Now, as Emma and I drove to my parents' house for the celebration dinner, I reflected on how far we had come in 3 months. There had been setbacks, tense phone calls, therapy sessions that ended in tears, moments when old patterns threatened to reassert themselves. But there had also been progress, genuine efforts at change, and a new honesty in our family that, while sometimes painful, was ultimately healing. My parents' house was decorated for the occasion with string lights and flowers. A banner reading, "Congratulations, Oliver and Emma," hung in the dining room. It was a small gathering, just my parents, Tyler, Grandma Rose, Uncle Jack, and Aunt Patricia. The atmosphere was slightly tentative at first, everyone conscious of the journey we'd been on, and the work still ahead. But as we shared a meal prepared with care by both my parents, a first, my father had never participated in cooking before the tension gradually eased. After dinner, my father stood and asked for everyone's attention. He held a glass of champagne, his expression uncharacteristically vulnerable. "I want to make a toast," he said, "to Oliver and Emma. I missed the opportunity to do this on your wedding day, a fact I will always regret." He paused, collecting himself. "But I'm grateful for the chance to do it now, and for your willingness to give our family another chance despite the pain we caused." He turned to face Emma and me directly. Oliver, you've grown into a man of principle and courage, the kind of man who stands up for himself and speaks his truth even when it's difficult. I wish I could take credit for that quality. But the truth is, you developed it despite my failures, not because of my guidance. He swallowed hard before continuing. Emma, thank you for seeing the extraordinary person my son is, for valuing him as he deserves to be valued. And thank you for not giving up on this family, even when you had every right to. He raised his glass. To Oliver and Emma. May your marriage be built on the mutual respect and genuine presence that you've shown us is possible. May you break the harmful patterns of the past and create a new legacy of love and balance. And may you always know that despite our flawed expressions of it, you are both deeply loved and valued in this family. It wasn't a perfect speech, and it couldn't erase the hurt of the past. But it was honest, and it acknowledged both the pain and the possibility of a different future. As we all raised our glasses, I felt the weight I'd carried for so long begin to lighten, not because the past had been erased, but because it had finally been seen and acknowledged. Later that evening, as the gathering was winding down, I found myself alone with my brother in the backyard. We sat in the old porch swing looking up at the stars. So Tyler said after a comfortable silence, "Think Mom and Dad are going to make it." My parents' marriage had been strained to the breaking point by the wedding incident and its aftermath. The threat of divorce had been real. But the therapy seemed to be helping them too, forcing them to examine patterns in their relationship that went beyond their parenting. "I think so," I replied. "They're both trying. That counts for something." Tyler nodded. "It's weird, you know. This whole situation blew up our family, but maybe it needed to happen, like lancing a wound to let the infection out." "That's a graphic but accurate metaphor," I laughed. "Hey, I'm not just a pretty face with a good throwing arm," he grinned, then grew serious again. "For what it's worth, I'm glad you did what you did. Not because it hurt Mom and Dad, but because it forced us all to face some hard truths. I think we needed that, even if none of us would have chosen it." As Emma and I drove home that night, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't expected to reach so soon. The hurt hadn't magically disappeared. The trust wasn't fully rebuilt. The new patterns we were trying to establish were still fragile and required conscious effort from everyone. But there was genuine progress, real change that gave me hope for the future of our family. "What are you thinking?" Emma asked, squeezing my hand as I drove. "I'm thinking about family patterns," I replied. "How easy it is to repeat them without even realizing it. My father repeated his father's pattern. My mother repeated her parents' pattern in reverse." "And what about us?" Emma asked. "When we have children someday?" "I think being aware of the pattern is the first step to breaking it," I said. "Seeing it clearly, naming it, and consciously choosing a different path. And having a partner who calls you out when you start slipping into old habits," Emma added with a gentle smile. She was right. The healing that had begun in our family wasn't just about the past. It was about the future we were creating together. The awareness we now shared would help us build something different, something healthier for the next generation. The road ahead would still have its challenges. Family healing isn't a destination but an ongoing journey. There would be moments when old hurts resurfaced, when ingrained patterns threatened to reassert themselves. But we had broken the silence, named the dysfunction, and committed to a different way forward. That, I believed, was the most important first step. As we arrived home, I thought about all the people watching this video who might recognize their own family patterns in our story. Have you ever felt overlooked or undervalued in your family? Have you been caught in generational patterns that seem impossible to break? Share your experiences in the comments below. Sometimes knowing we're not alone in these struggles is the first step toward healing. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more stories of family challenges and reconciliation. Your support means everything as I continue sharing these personal journeys. Thank you for listening, and remember, standing up for your worth doesn't mean giving up on the relationships that matter. Sometimes the hardest conversations lead to the most meaningful healing.